Let's go now to the running backs here, and this is more of a interesting list that you could find some starters at. So we told you the situation with the Eagles, that there is no Miles Sanders. He's out with the hand injury. So, Dave, give me your spin on this. Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, Kenneth Gainwell. If Howard is in, if Howard's out, how do you approach it?
The first assumption that every fantasy manager should make is that the Eagles will use multiple running backs, no matter who's healthy and who's not. I think Jordan Howard is going to be the guy that they'll use first. He was the first guy up after Miles Sanders left last week. He was also the guy that was mixing in with Sanders first before Sanders hurt his hand. So if he's available, I think he's the one that would be the best Eagles running back. But Boston Scott isn't that far behind. They're both, as long as they're both healthy, currently in that number 2 fantasy running back range. But even if Jordan Howard ends up not playing, I'll be excited about Boston Scott, but I can't lose sight of the fact that Kenneth Gainwell will be lurking behind him, and he will help pitch in as well. That's why I have a hard time seeing Boston Scott as a top 12 fantasy running back. Definitely safer as a number 2 option.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but I certainly understand he's upside with what Boston Scott could do, because they are going to run. They're going to run a lot, and he has 4 games this season with at least 12 carries. In all 4 of them, he's gotten 12 or more PPR points. So there's a good opportunity for him to be successful, and it's really been capped at around 12 carries. So I would imagine he's getting probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15, 18. All right, so Heath, yesterday you said you weren't so excited about Dare Ogunbowale. I get it. He's taking on a Patriots defense. It's a very tough matchup, but still he's going to get a lot of work. As we see here, he stepped in for James Robinson, got 19 total touches. It's hard to find running backs that can get that caliber of work, and we've seen the Patriots at times struggle against running backs. Have you changed your opinion at all about Ogunbowale after going through your rankings, maybe your projections a little bit more?
Yes, I have changed my opinion a little bit. He is now a borderline top 30 running back for me this week, and there's just not really anybody else there. Maybe they give a couple carries to Raquel Armstead after he missed all of last year, but I think it's probably going to be Ogunbowale, and he'll do some things in the passing game. I don't want to trust him,
yes,
but he is towards the top of this list.
When I write the column for CBSSports.com, it's always like, okay, you should pick this guy up. But in the same way, it's like, I want to pick him up, but I don't want to start him.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where it is. So, Dave, you have a different opinion on Ogunbowale, or is it kind of the same thing? More of a flex, just somebody that you could desperation type of a pivot play in case you lost James Robinson, Sanders, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Let me put it this way. I want the guy I'm playing in my fantasy championship to pick up and start Dare Ogunbowale against me. He is not a great football player. There's a reason why he was 3rd on the depth chart behind Robinson and Carlos Hyde for the majority of the year. He's going to take on the Patriots defense with a depleted offensive line. I know the opportunities are going to be there. I expect him to be totally inefficient when he does it. Even if he gets 18 touches in the game, I can't expect him to get much more than 80 total yards.
Yeah, I'm just going to correct one thing you said. He's actually a pretty good special teams player, which is why he's hung around the NFL so long. So not a very good running back, but a very good special teams guy. All right, so Heath, take me through Rex Burkhead, because it was awesome to see what he did against the Chargers. Any semblance of hope taking on the 49ers.
He's right there in the Dare Ogunbowale range. I kind of go back and forth with which one of these guys I like more. I don't think you should expect anywhere close to the efficiency that we saw last week, because we've really never seen that from Rex Burkhead before. He had 149 yards on 22 carries. His prior 4 games, he had 47 carries for 138 yards. So I think you're probably, like Dave said, maybe going to live in that 70 to 80 yards range and hope that he scores a touchdown. But the way to score touchdowns against this 49ers defense is generally through the air.
And again, very similar, I think, to what Dave said about Ogunbowale. You want your opponent to be starting somebody like Rex Burkhead, but in desperate situations, at least you know he's going to get the work. And so for Ogunbowale, for Burkhead, they'll get the work. And maybe not so much, though, for Derek Gore and Cam Akers, but they are available, and they are in some interesting spots. Gore, because of the Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury, is going to be at least the second guy, and who knows how much work he takes away from Darrell Williams. And then Cam Akers, we don't know exactly how much work he'll get, if at all, but Sean McVay saying that he is going to have the chance to play with Darrell Henderson now placed on IR. So, Dave, desperate situation. You need a flex. Derek Gore or Cam Akers as things currently stand with Williams and Sony Michel healthy?
Until I learn a little bit more about Cam Akers' situation, I will lean toward Derek Gore. I think Gore will be the better option for fantasy managers who are absolutely desperate. And I don't think Gore is too far off from where we're talking about Burkhead and Ogunbowale. I would take Burkhead first, and I think I'd probably lean toward Ogunbowale second. But as far as just a running back who can get you in that 60 to 80 total yards, or maybe it's better to say 6 to 8 total non-PPR fantasy points, because Gore can score, he's not too far behind them. Akers, he was going to be the guy that I would add to my bench as a good luck charm for the fantasy playoffs. That was a few months ago when I was ready to do that. It would be a hell of a story if he ended up mattering in fantasy in Week 17 in the championships. But as long as Sony Michel is healthy, I have a hard time believing that Akers will see even in the neighborhood of 7 touches.
Yeah, I just if you're the Rams, why risk it? Why risk any further injury? You may need him in the playoffs, just in case Darrell Henderson does not come back. He's eligible to return after the 3-game absence. But, yeah, I think it'd just be a fun story, though, if you see him come out there, he's healthy, does anything of significance. But clearly the Sony Michel fantasy manager would like to see a lot of Sony Michel. All right, let's get to one other running back situation here, because typically we talk about players that are available in 65% of leagues or fewer. But Jeff Wilson is available in 32% of CBSSports.com leagues. So, Heath, if we get to your waiver wire, 10-team league, maybe some 12-team leagues, and he's sitting out there, is he the easiest priority to go get?
Yeah, he would be the top option, assuming that Jordan Howard hasn't been ruled out. If Jordan Howard was ruled out,
So
I'd start Scott over Wilson.
Scott over Wilson.
Yes.
Okay, Dave, what about you? If Wilson's still sitting there, is he be the number one guy to go get?
Race to get him, spend your fab, convince your friends to do something else on Tuesday night or Wednesday night. Do whatever it takes to get Jeff Wilson if you need a running back, and especially if you need a running back and you have Elijah Mitchell, and for whatever stupid reason, you haven't handcuffed the two of them together.
And that's, of course, we're saying this if Mitchell is out. So Mitchell still has a chance to return this week, but Kyle Shanahan saying they're hopeful. There's just no guarantee that he's going to come back after the knee injury, dealing with the concussion situation. So it's been a tough road for Elijah Mitchell to get back on the field. Jeff Wilson scored each of the last 2 weeks. You saw the graphic, just how he's performed. Great game against the Falcons 2 weeks ago. Good game against the Titans last week on Thursday night.